Yeah. It still hasn't cleared up entirely. So slate and bones don't mix.
They don't? You know, I in emptying out my son's apartment out in California, towards the end of the day, I was walking back into his place and just completely spaced on the fact that there was a step
Yeah, yeah.
and went right down on my bad knee
Oh,
and on pavement. And it took me about a year actually to
yeah,
totally get rid of the effect of that.
yeah. Well, fortunately, I hit, I guess, my good knee. So now I have two bad knees.
Well, at least you're balanced, Bill.
Um, and I can't remember whether that was partly by intention or not when I went down. I
Mm,
kind of think I wouldn't have had the presence of mind, but maybe instinct, I don't know.
yeah, yeah, you might. You might very well, because that's a preservation.
Yeah.
So we had a great workshop on Sunday.
Ah,
Um, I think it may have been the best one that Rick has done that I've attended.
ah,
Um,
good.
and I've I've been through a bunch. It was really good.
Yeah. How many people?
Actually, we had a small group, 16,
Uh-huh.
uh, enough, but not huge by any means.
Yeah.
We typically we have between 20 and 30,
Well, I
but
can't remember the last one I went to down in Old Lyme was large.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think actually, as he said at the end of the workshop, that he'd only gotten through about a third of what he wanted to get through.
Yeah.
So I think actually the fall workshop is going to continue the same subjects. Well, yin and yang, uh,
Yeah.
which is kind of broad, but he made them real.
Good.
But I think that the fall workshop, um, he'll he'll do a brief review of what we did Sunday, and then take us on further. So,
Okay.
morning, Jeff.
Morning, Jeff.
Good morning. Good to see you guys.
Good to
Yep.
see you. How are you?
Good.
Good. Nice to hear you say good.
Uh, I'm usually good, and maybe I don't convey it, but I'm good and happy. Just kind of on the tired side generally, but always
Yeah,
always good. Almost always good.
good, good. Um, I was just talking about Rick's workshop Sunday. It was really good.
I bet.
So, anyway, we'll have a really good class.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think the thing that made me feel so positive about Sunday was that I think it was perhaps one of the first times that I had a really crystal clear awareness of the power of yin,
Hmm.
which I've not been unaware of it, but he he helped us clarify that a little, and I
Hmm.
think we'll go on with that next time. So that that's kind of important, and often we don't really recognize it. Our tendency is to think of yin as weak, and it's not. Um, so it was kind of interesting. So, questions on what we're working on? Reports, problems, successes, failures?
A couple of things. I don't know which category they fall under, but a couple of things to say. Um, I haven't, in all honesty, I haven't had much time at all to do much practicing. I've done a little bit, and what I've done, this is what I'm going to relate to you. One thing was I did watch the class that I missed last week,
Hmm.
and one of the things you guys talked about struck something within me, and I'm always a little bit disappointed that I don't tend to feel anywhere nearly as much in my legs as I do in my arms,
Mm.
particularly with things like lengthening. But when you said that one of the things that shows that you're actually making some progress with it is when your root is strengthened and you can feel like you're merging with the earth while doing this, that's actually a sign of lengthening. And I do experience that. And I hadn't really thought of that as being something that was being helped and improved upon by lengthening. So hearing that gave me some hope that things are happening in my legs. So that was a very positive thing to hear, and I'm glad that you guys went off onto that into that area and
Good.
discussed that because I would not have put two and two together, and it does tell me, oh, hey, you are feeling some stuff in your legs. That's good.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, um, and the other thing is when we had talked about this was I think it was the second class of Domus, but we talked about where I was lengthening from. And I had said I was lengthening, trying to do it from the scapula. And then we talked about trying to do it from the whole spine, because then that therefore does connect to your legs and quad and everything else. And doing that and then envisioning it and feeling the connection helped a lot.
Good.
Um, it also brought to mind maybe the need to think about the C curve a little bit more. I know you had said that you had worked with Bill in other classes with it. I have not worked much with it at all. So where you can bring that into our practice here, I think would help me. If you're making whatever you can do, making a mention here or saying, we can think about the C curve there, whatever might help me to incorporate it a little bit more because I think I am feeling a little bit more when I do it. I'm also
Yeah.
not sure that still sure yet that I'm doing it correctly either. So that's the other side of it.
Okay.
So just
Good.
to just to bring that to forefront for whatever, however you can incorporate that or however you want to incorporate that,
Well,
I thought that would probably help me.
I'm sure Bill won't mind looking at the C curve some more.
Not at all.
So those are in what little time I have had to practice, those are some of the important things that have actually come out of it. So, I guess that old tenet is true. Even a little bit of practice can be really good.
Yep.
Better than none, certainly. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whatever you can do.
yeah.
Anything for you, Bill?
Well, uh, I worked a bit on the form with stopping as we did
Mm.
last week.
Yep.
and there's some good. As I stopped and observed what was going on, but there's also not necessarily bad, but it whenever I stopped, I started to maybe overthink a little bit. Should I be this way? Should I be that way? Am I doing, you know, is this right?
Hmm.
Um, so it doesn't need solving, but that's what happened. So,
Well, yeah, and that's not necessarily bad,
hmm,
um, because we do have to do the thinking first, and be clear about what we want to do and where we want to be, um, particularly on our feet.
yeah.
Um, that shift from the ball of the foot to the heel and back is really important, and it is easy to work on that with the 8 gate standing practice because both feet are doing this, both legs are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
When you get into the form, very often, most of the time actually, um, the legs are doing opposite things in terms of that weight distribution. And that has a great deal to do with balance and energetic connection and flow. So it is something that eventually you do want to focus on, but it's until you are really clear about it and really feeling it, feeling its effect clearly. It's kind of hard to work on it in the form because in the form, as I said, the legs are opposite and they are changing at different speeds and times and relationships. It's just much more complicated.
Well, I
Um,
did find that um, I think I've observed this before that I discovered myself leaning forward a lot um,
mm,
when I didn't think I should be.
right?
Um, and that either led to or joined my observations about weight shift, where the weight was,
Hmm.
and since I was stopping a lot, I think I finally became a little bit confused about where the weight was supposed to be at that particular, moment.
Hmm. Oh yeah, that's easy, actually. um, be glad we only have 30 postures uh, in this form. So, good points. Good things to think about. Um, Let me talk a bit about C curve and maybe actually not only talk but demonstrate a little bit here. Um, I think as probably we're relatively clear that with the C curve, bend the bow and shoot the arrow. Um, we are relating that movement to the middle of the spine, which is different from the bottom of the spine, which is our focus for beginning the movements of the Taoist spine stretch. So they are two completely different movements with different intentions. However, the work you've done at the Taoist spine stretch certainly has helped you to become aware of um, your spine and actually leads to making the C curve easier to be sensitive to and able to do. So the C curve we're focusing on a point somewhere in the middle of the spine. And everybody's middle of the spine is a little bit different depending on your physical structure. Then both the head and the pelvis curve at the same time, but originating from the middle of the spine. And Bruce often says it's as if your head and your pelvis are trying to come together. So there is a real sense of that bend, bringing the pelvis up and the head down. One of the difficulties, of course, is that the lumbar spine and the cervical spine and bend in very different amounts and ways than than each other. I mean, they are not the same, obviously, and so we often have a problem with overly bending the cervical spine or straining the lumbar. And you have to find the balance. The C curve should not be a strain. You're not trying to force that to happen. And one of the most important things in terms of the cervical spine is that you have to be sure that you do the crane neck and maintain that extension all the time. So crane neck, and I think you both know this, but I'm gonna go through it again just to be sure. With crane neck, there is that sense of opening the space at the jade pillow gate, which is right at the base of the skull where the spine and the skull join. And that space needs to open. Everything in the cervical spine has to lengthen. And then when you go forward, it is simply bending everything so that the head goes up and out. It doesn't go down. As a matter of fact, I know I've done the wrist and the neck example to you, but you can even hear it simply in my talking voice. If I just bend my neck down, you can hear it begin to impact how my voice sounds. If I extend and go up and forward, it doesn't really make any difference at all. So that particular movement is extremely important. And one of our issues is, as I said, maintaining it, because there is a tendency to get the crane neck and then lose it. And so maintaining that all the way through that movement is really important.
David, how do you do that without actually using muscles to extend and all? You know, but how do you release to do that versus using muscles? It seems difficult.
It's more intent than muscle. And intent is an extremely important element in really everything we do. So if you intend the head to release and lengthen, it will do it. You can also stretch it up, but you can hear even just doing that it begins to affect my speech and therefore my breathing and the energetic connection.
Okay.
So it is very counterintuitive, as is a great deal of what we do. that you have to have the intention, and you also have to get the mind really inside the body so that it feels what's happening inside the body.
Right.
So that you, because you Without the intention and the feeling, then you don't really know what you're doing.
Mm.
Um, so this is an issue for lots of people. I mean, Jeff, you're not. I just want you to know you're not unusual. This is a. Um, it's part of lengthening. You are in effect lengthening your neck
Right.
and opening that space. Well, the same thing that you're doing with the arm, if you're thinking about lengthening your arm, you're not stretching it out with the muscles because that just blocked the flow of the energy.
Right.
Same thing with the neck. It's just, I don't know, maybe a little more difficult or a little more counterintuitive, but it's exactly the same thing.
So, well, what got me to asking you this question is with the other areas, arms and so forth,
Yeah.
it's lengthening in and lengthening out. But when you had said what we need to do with the neck, with that part of the spine, you said then we hold it in the extended period. We don't let it slump. We don't let it go back in, but we hold it up. So that seemed like maybe there was a little something more to it than I needed to know beyond intent and so forth.
Not really, because as you're going to after you extend it up and you go forward, then um, as always, they are continual movements. So you're going to bend forward and then you're going to straighten. Now, in using it in the eight gates, it's very rhythmical with the breath. It's nice and easy to do that. In
Right.
the form, clearly, um, you have it. um, the spine is bending as you're stepping, and it's straightening as you go into pung, and then it bends and straightens as you go into, into G, and then
Right.
it bends and bends and bends and straightens into on. I mean, it's not that exhale, inhale, because you're now breathing without breathing, and
Mm.
um, focusing on the movement of the energy.
Right.
So um, it's and I think the answer to your question is practice, practice, practice.
Yeah. It's getting used to keeping that intent and that bringing the mind inside the body for a longer period of time and more in the head and neck area, which we don't usually focus on.
Yeah, throughout the whole body.
Yeah.
um, and that's and and that's obviously what you should be working on in the eight gates, because that's where it's relatively easy. I'll use the term relative because easy isn't probably the right term, but as always, the concept is simple, but the
Right.
application isn't necessarily easy. And it, and there is no replacement for practice.
Right.
Uh, the the reason why Bruce is so good is that he practiced and still does, I think, hours and hours a day.
Mm.
Um, we all can't all afford or arrange to do that, but we do tend often to just do a minimum amount of what we can easily get into our schedule instead of making space for practice. Um, so blah blah blah. You know all of that. So,
That was a helpful answer. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
That was a helpful answer to what I was asking about extending it all. So,
Oh, good, good. So, let's see if I can. Well, what did I? Oh, that's not what I meant, was it? I really didn't mean to do that.
there we go.
I don't have the best eyes in the room. Um, so when you're thinking about that C curve, often it's helpful to first to practice the two parts individually. So you can think about that upper half of the spine, and so the extension is not huge. You're not pushing it up, but you're allowing it to release and open, and then bend from the middle of the spine. And it doesn't have to be terribly big as long as you can feel some connection into the spine, that it's actually beginning to open the upper half of the spine. And so that movement then becomes to extend and go forward. And very importantly, when you straighten, the head has to go up, not back. Often when we straighten from a bend like that, we have a tendency to go back. And it's just really important to think about straightening and going actually up and the lumbar area going down. The lumbar area obviously is going to move much less, but as it goes forward and stretches that spine, you can feel it in the spine. This is of course part of getting your mind inside your body, is beginning to really be aware of what you're doing. And this is not a tightening up and pulling, because that just cuts off the flow through this whole pelvic and quad area. So it too is a tuck and a release into that. And then when you straighten, again being careful that you go back to your basic structure of the sacrum, going straight down to the feet and not going back. And then of course the whole movement is to get those two to work together and not to overemphasize either one. The neck will bend more than the sacral area, but you want it to be proportionally equal, if you will. So in other words, if your sacrum is being able to tuck and bend, and you can feel that in what we'll refer to as 70%. So in other words, you're not trying to push to the 100 that you could do, but you're allowing yourself to release into the 70. And the upper half of the spine also extending up and bending just 70%, or less if your spine is um, in difficulty for whatever reason at this point. And then when you straighten, it's important that both work together so that you straighten to the head going up and the sacrum going down simultaneously. Question in there?
No, no.
So the the more or less, let's say the easier way to practice this is in the 8 gates.
Hmm.
So when we and let's just look at the beginning of that for a moment. So when you begin and the feet are together, and actually as you sink into that right foot, the spine is bending slightly, and then it begins to extend as that foot goes out and goes on up into the straight spine as you come to center. And then as you begin, you go into that transition, the first transition, and the spine is bending and then extending. And it goes right on. It bends and then it extends. So the bending and straightening of the spine obviously goes right along with the other bend and stretch movements we've talked about, the twisting in and twisting out, and the lengthening in and lengthening out. They all work together. They all coordinate together. And if you actually, one way to think about it is if you've got those four and the breathing pretty well, working pretty well, you've got 5 out of the 16 Neigong. You only have 11 to go.
Right.
So, did that raise a question for either of you?
No?
Okay. So let's do the 8 gates, and we're thinking. So we'll bring our focus to doing the C curve as you're doing this, and I'm really was serious about not overdoing the amount of bend. It doesn't have to be huge. You just have to feel it.
Right.
So. Beginning to bend the spine as you drop into the right foot, and then begin to straighten, coming into center. And if you are going to stand for a while before you begin to move, which is a good thing, you can let that C curve continue very subtly. It doesn't have to be big. If you were here, you probably could see my body moving, but it doesn't have to be even that much. But it is one thing you could do as part of your standing. It's not always included, but you might. And then when you're ready to go into the movements of 8 gates, as you bend, you're bending the spine and extend the spine and bend and extend, and bend and extend. And transition bending in, extending out, bend and extend. And just begin to be aware of each of the parts. The arms and legs bending and extending. Arms and legs twisting in and extending out. And lengthening in and lengthening out. So really let yourself have that sense of letting go, not forcing. It's not that you're not in control, but use your mind intent. Bending your spine, extend your spine. Bend and extend. Try to make sure that you're maintaining the crane's neck. If you don't, you'll lose the sense of connection to the spine itself. So bending and extending. Bend and extend. Head going up. Twisting in. Twisting out. Lengthening in. Lengthening out. Bending in. Stretching out. Keep the spine connected. Feel that pelvic tuck, stretching out the lower spine just a little, opening it up. Bending in, extending out. And bending in, extending out, bending in, extending out, in, out, in, out, in, out, and release. So does that raise questions at all?
Um, yeah, it raised an awareness for me that I need to, when I'm lengthening back out the spine, the C curve, opening it back up, I'm finding, I realized I was doing it mostly with muscles more so than intent. So I need to work on that for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
Along those same lines, I had one of my crazy images while it was going on. When I thought it was going well, I imagined myself as the little doughboy, uh, just sort of, without tension and, without, you know, a, a tight structure.
Okay.
You know, um,
Ah,
I also noticed that my hands wanted to come in from the side channels.
yeah.
Had to keep pulling them back out.
Yeah, if you stay aware of that, you'll be surprised how much you'll feel happening in those side channels.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh,
Another thing I found interesting from what we just did, excuse me, I was not at all focused on my legs. I was trying to focus on the C curve
yeah.
and from the spine, etc. But again, as we got to the end, I realized I was extremely rooted. So
Uh
it
huh.
was, I was getting some effect, even though I realized that there's a lot of stuff I still need to work on, obviously. But
Yeah.
I'm feeling it in the legs again, which I take as a big win.
Yeah, and it. I think it takes a long time to clearly feel it in the legs,
Oh yeah,
to
yeah.
balance it to feeling the same as you do in your arms.
Yeah, I'm not remotely close to that, but I'm taking the fact that I'm actually getting rooted as a result of this as the
Yeah.
first step in that direction.
Yep. Um, the other part of this, I guess we've talked about too, is that subtle movement from the ball of the foot to the heel, um, towards the ball of the foot when you're inhaling, and towards the heel of the foot when you're exhaling. Um, and that's helpful too, because it that encourages the flow of the energy in the direction you want it to go.
Right.
So nothing to think about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, questions about lengthening in the form?
Not on the stuff that we've gone over so far, anyways.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so are both of you clear about the yin and yang surfaces of the body?
No.
One of the things I like about you, Jeff, is you're honest.
I mean, generally, I think of yang as the outer,
Yeah,
and yin as the inner, but I'm
of the
sure that
legs, yeah,
there's a lot more to it than that.
and the back is young, I think.
Yep. So yeah, in the arms, the outside, the back of the hand, the outside is yang,
Oh,
and the inside is yin.
right.
And in the torso, the back is yang, and the chest and abdomen are yin. In the legs, we really think of them as actually having um, four sides, but principally we think of um, the outside and the back as yang, and the inside and the front as yin.
Right.
The reason I'm mentioning this is that the next step to go to with lengthening, actually with all of this, is to begin to feel the movement of the energy along those surfaces of the body. So as the energy is coming in, it initially comes, we think of it coming up the inside of the leg. So if we're thinking about the macrocosmic circuit first, just at the moment, it's coming up the inside of the leg to the qua. And it actually goes from the qua through to the back and up the back, over the top of the head, down the front of the body. Now it's into the yin part of the movement, um, in the torso. When it gets to the qua, it goes around the outside. Being yang, it goes on the outside and then down the outside of the leg. It goes to the arms from in that circuit from two principal areas, two principal places. Um, one is actually at the level of the heart, but it's on the central channel and back. And there is one connection that goes out to the arms there. The other one is actually up at the bottom of the cervical spine. And there is another pathway to the arms. You don't have to worry too much. They both are functioning. And actually, actually, they are both they work in both directions. We don't usually separate saying one is yin, one of those pathways is yin and one is yang. We really think about the yin and yang in relation to the surface of the body that it's passing over at the moment or through. Eventually, of course, we want the energy to be moving more deeply into the body, but we we begin by feeling it on the surface. Um, Clearly, that's not the only pathway we're working with, is it? We also have um, those times when the energy is moving from the dantian to the feet, to the crown of the head, and to the hands at the same time, and coming back from those 5 points to the dantian at the same time. So the same awareness of the direction of the movement of the energy remains. So, in other words, when the energy goes from the dantian out, it goes from the dantian actually through the qua to the outside of the leg and down, and comes up the inside of the leg to the perineum and back to the dantian. And when it's going up, it goes from the dantian up, out through one of those pathways into the arms, and as it's going up, it's going up the back, out the yang side of the arms, back in. That's one of those pathways again on the yin side. And as it comes down the front of the body from the crown of the head, it's now on the yin side of the body, picks up, joins with the energy from the arms on the yin side and returns to the dantian. So what are the yin and yang surfaces, and what direction the energy is moving on those surfaces actually, as far as we're concerned, at this point remains the same. Just we're talking about 2 of the 4,000 different pathways of energy movement in the body. Have I confused you here?
To a degree, yeah.
I'm sorry?
To a degree, yes, but
Okay, and in what way? Where are you confused?
um, I think in trying to envision and understand the actual pathway and on surfaces, and where exactly the energy is moving, what separates the yin part of the surface from the yang part. Where does it change over? How does it change? What what is the depth of the energy movement? Is it through the
You're
five?
not looking. Let me just interrupt. You're not looking at any depth at the moment.
Just surface.
We're just talking about surface.
All right. Well, I guess so. I was thinking just too much into it then.
Yeah. Yes. Eventually, you're if you want to talk about depth,
Yeah.
there are several levels of practice here, but the ultimate level is the um, side channels are moving on the outside of the bones, and the central channel is moving through the marrow of the bone. And we want to be able to move the energy through the bones.
That was actually one of the questions that arose that I didn't know if I should ask. So is the bone actually kind of the separating part of the channels? From yin and yang sides. 'Cause it seems like that's the solid part, and that's where that would be the most likely.
Um,
But you don't have to answer that. It's a question that came to mind, is all I'm going to say.
sure, there's a yes, there is some reference there that, but at the moment we're really trying just to be clear about the surfaces of the body.
Okay, well, we'll stay with that because that's more than enough for me to comprehend.
It's a great place to start.
Yes. All right.
So the I think the thing that's perhaps a little confusing. Depends on what you're focusing on in terms of those two um, energetic movements, the macrocosmic circuit or the center to the periphery. And all I was trying to say was that the surface, what defines the yin or the yang surface of the body doesn't change in either of those cases. We're just talking about a different sequence of movement, if you will, along those surfaces. I will say, because one of you is going to have this thought in the back of your mind, I have a feeling, yes, both yin and yang energy are moving along both surfaces. But our intention is that we are moving the energy along a specific surface. And basically, we are moving a yang energy along the yang surface and a yin energy along the yin surface. So you want to try to just stay with that and not make it more confusing than it needs to be. So when we're thinking about this with the and sticking for the moment with the 8 gates, we will someday return to the Wu style, but in thinking about the 8 gates, there it is. So if we think about the macrocosmic circuit, which is one of the primary ways that the energy is moving in the body, and we'll just start with the transition into one. As you are bending and twisting in, that energy is coming in the inside of the leg, up the back of the body to the crown of the head, out the arms. And when you go into that rest of that posture, it is coming down the front of the body in I'm sorry. Now I'm confusing. I'm not saying what I mean. Let's start again. So the first movement is drawing the energy in. So we're coming in the yin surfaces of the body. So it's coming in the inside of the legs to the qua. It does then go up the back to the crown of the head. It comes in the arms on the yin surface. And then as you go into the posture, it's going out the yang surfaces of the arms and down and out the yang surfaces of the legs. The fact that it's going through the opposite yin or yang in the torso is part of the balance of yin and yang in your body. So don't let that throw you off. So when you're bringing the energy in, it's coming in and then it's going out. And that's the first way to really think about it, because that flow needs to be continuous. That flow of continually bringing energy from the earth in and through the body and from the heavens through the body and down, that's the basic flow of the energy and connection to the universe. The other flow I talked about, um, we don't really need, we don't have to do that one today. I think maybe this is enough to deal with at the moment. Um, since we haven't worked on this before. But as you're doing this, and at first you probably just want to focus on the arms, because that's where you can most easily feel. That's where we all most easily feel the energy. But we want to have the sense that the energy is coming in the yin side of the arm and then going out the yang side. And when it comes in the yin, we don't pay any attention to the yang. And when it goes out the yang, we're not paying any attention to the yin. So your mind intent is particularly important here. And this, of course, is coordinating with all the other pieces that we've been working on. They're all happening together. And so this is perhaps the easier place to work on this than to think about it in the form particularly. I mean, we will, but just at the moment, really trying to get the feeling of that energy movement over at least the surfaces of the arms. But ultimately, we want to feel it in the entire body, obviously. But that may take weeks, months, years. Who can say? It's different for everybody. But if you need to have some, as always, initial mental awareness of what you want to be happening in order to work on actually being aware of it happening and feeling it happening. And feeling that energy movement, even though we're talking about the surface of the body, it is also related to getting the mind to extend through the body, because that's part of being able to feel along the surface and ultimately to feel inside the body. That have I totally confused you now?
Well, I'm not sure. I guess it might be characterized as confusion. Um, it seems to me like a lot depends on where my mind is focused.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're talking about the energy coming in on the inside, um, and I'm not paying attention to the yang side because I'm paying attention to the inside, but the other portion of my brain knows that that's going on. And not only is it going on, but the energy is moving in both ways.
Mm-hmm.
um, and uh, it, it, uh, my point of observation keeps shifting, you know.
So, so that's why being clear about where you want your mind intent to be focused is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Because, um, yeah, it is important to be aware that all these possibilities exist.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also important to recognize you can't possibly do all of them or think about all of them at the same
Right.
time
Right.
effectively. So you really have to work on just one at a time and let the others go. You can't, if you drive yourself crazy thinking about all these things at once, you'll do exactly that. You'll drive yourself crazy and you don't really make significant progress.
Mm.
So you have to focus on um, whatever it is you're focusing on. And as I've talked about in the Gods class, Bill, um, I may be giving you more than you're ready for at the moment, and that's fine. So you can put it aside and come back to it later. You don't have to do it right
Mm.
now, but it seemed a good time to introduce it at any rate.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not meaning to
No, I
belittle.
understand that. Yeah, I mean, and we're somewhat compartmentalizing, just taking one portion of it and working on that, and then another portion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's right back to that concept of separate and then combine.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, what about for you, Jeff? I think this is newer for you than it is for Bill, actually.
Um, I will take from it what I can at this point in time, but mostly focus on the other things we're focusing on now and just kind of keep this as
Uh huh.
an awareness when and how I can. I'm not going to try and
Yep.
focus on this right now.
Yeah.
Um, but it's good to know and it's good to be there and
Yep.
in bits and pieces incorporate it.
Yeah. Good. Well, my thought is let's just do a flow of the Wu style, um, not worrying about not worrying about anything. So that so I'll say again. Remember that there are ideally two parts of practice. One is to focus on working on whatever element or section you need to work on, and there is flowing. And flowing is just flowing. It's not trying to work on problems or figure things out. It's just doing the best you can to flow.
Right.
Um, so let's just have a nice flow to close this class.
Sounds good.
So we've been doing a lot of talking, so let's just take a minute to allow your mind to release. Let yourself get into your body. Let your mind get into your body. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Let yourself just soften and connect downward and upward. And begin Taiji. Stepping left, Peng, Ji, Lu, on. Peng, Ji, Lu, on. Single whip, expanding out, reset, single whip, touch, step back and pull down, turn and embrace. Sit on that left foot, protect in, step to the corner and shoulder. White goose spreads its wings. Follow. Focus. Turning. Up. And then rotate and wave hands like clouds. Try to keep the roundness, the sphericalness of that ball. And keep it rotating, even as it expands and contracts. And into another single whip. Touch. Step forward and lift hand. Turning, high pat the horse and subdue the tiger. Shift and kick. Subdue the tiger right. And kick. Step around. Turn all the way to the other side and kick with heel. Step and single whip. Step up and push down. Step forward, forming a fist, push down and chop. And turn, step back. Rotate and chop to the right. Back. Peng, Ji. Turn, shift onto the left, kick, and step back, and sink into offering incense. Sit back and rotate to gargoyles. Step back and gargoyles. Shift forward and sweep the lotus. Stroke the long beard. Pick up the bow. Shoot the tiger. Turn. Stroke the kidneys to double cannon punch. Reset. Sit on the right foot and play pipa. And sink. Rise to close. Well, not my best balanced day, but
I was just thinking, it always feels good to just flow, no matter what parts we get right, what parts we get wrong. It always
right.
feels, you know,
Yep.
that's the whole point of all this is just to feel better, and it always feels good to flow.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was actually good to go a little faster than usual too. Yeah.
Good point.
different paces are good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I realized we'd spent a lot of time talking, and we needed to flow. Good.
David, do you remember back in the day, just real briefly, there were a couple of times I remember when we did an extremely slow
Mm,
flow, like,
yep.
whatever form it was, but like it took up the majority of class to do one flow.
Yep.
Those times are beneficial too. It was just
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I, I got introduced to that. You said that, and I remember with my first teacher. He did a weekend workshop somewhere. I have vague memories of it, but the last day, the last thing we did was a flow of a Xiang long form style that took an hour to do one time through.
Yeah.
And it was so powerful.
But that's what I remember was the power. I'm pretty sure it was the Yang form, whether it was the 48 or the 108. I don't remember. It
Yeah.
might have been both, but I do remember it because it was at the end. It felt so good
Yep.
having done that. So
Yeah. So it's Master Joe always said that it's important to explore in both directions,
right.
to try to go both as quickly as you can and as slow as you possibly can while maintaining the form.
Yep.
Right. And that applied really to weapons forms too. The different weapons forms, doing them slowly, but also doing them quickly, like the staff or the sword, could really
Yeah.
was quite different and really a great feeling.
Yep. Yep. Okay, guys. Any other last minute thoughts or questions?
Nope.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
And Jeff, we'll see you next week. And
That's the plan. Things are very in flux right now. Kate and Jesse actually leave for Australia for the summer in 8 days. Plus, obviously, we're still moving and unpacking and repacking and trying to sell the house. So I hope to be here. If not, I will let you know.
Okay, good luck.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Take care.
All righty. See you
You guys
tomorrow,
next.
Bill.
yeah,
Bye.
Yep.
will do. Bye.
Bye.